Before I decided to follow Jesus, I saw myself as a regular, okay person who was not perfect but knew how to treat others respectfully. On September 11th, 2001, Jesus showed me what I could become if I didn't choose to follow him, and that scared me. I decided to follow Jesus out of fear. Not fear of Jesus or hell, not because of the love of God, but fear of who I might become if I didn't change my ways. After making that choice, I started attending the local Pentecostal church in Tromsø, where I lived. As a Pentecostal, I often heard sermons about how important it is to love God. When I asked how to do that, they always told me to worship him, pray to him, read the Bible, and tell others about Jesus. As I continued my journey within mainstream Christianity, I noticed how Christians did not seem to agree on what it meant to love God. This realization struck me as inconsistent with the fact that Jesus' teachings, which predated the formal establishment of Christianity by 200 to 300 years, did not share in this confusion. Judged by the text, it seemed to be one answer to what it meant to love God. This realization prompted me to deeply contemplate and analyze the profound significance of loving God as it was comprehended by Jesus and his audience in the context of Mark 12. So how would someone listening to Jesus in Mark 12 understand what it meant to love God? The quote from Jesus is actually from Deuteronomy 6, so it's not a new commandment. When Jesus said these words, he and his listeners didn't have a New Testament. Their Bible was the Old Testament, which remained the only Bible for the next 200 to 300 years. Another important thing to remember is this. Jesus never said that the old understanding of loving God in Deuteronomy 6 was wrong. Loving God in Mark 12 is the same as loving God in Deuteronomy 6. We need to remember this because whenever I asked other Christians about it, they would say that Mark 12 is a new interpretation of Deut 6, and then quote an interpretation that wasn't in the scripture. This understanding came from the idea that the Old Testament was all about obedience and the New Testament was all about grace. But for this to be true, there had to exist a New Testament when Jesus lived. And we know that there would be another 200 to 300 years before a New Testament existed. So how can we understand what it means to love God in Deut 6? There is no word for obey in biblical Hebrew, and the Hebrew word Shema, which we find in Deut 6, is almost impossible to translate. It means listen, so we could translate Deut 6 and Mark 12 this way. Listen to Jehovah, our God. Why is this one word listen so important? When you read the 10 Commandments in Hebrew, it says the 10 words. God's spoken word is the 10 Commandments and the rest of the Torah. So, the Torah was spoken by Jehovah to Moses, who wrote it down. Now we see why Shema, listen, is so important. Those who heard Jesus speak in Mark 12 would have understood that he was referring to Deut 6 and was saying, listen to what Jehovah has told us and do what he said. Then you will love him with all your heart, soul, and strength. Do you remember how Jesus never said the old understanding of Deuteronomy 6 was wrong? This tells us that loving God in Mark 12 is the same as loving God in Deuteronomy 6. So, to love God according to Jesus is to listen to the Torah given to us by Jehovah and do what the Torah says. How do I know that I love God? How do you know that you love God? When we live by the Torah because we love God, we know that we love him. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. Until next time, God bless.